Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video, and today I wanted to share some time-lapse footage I got from the 4-day build with you. Basically, I picked a spot in Nate's shop, I put a GoPro up on time-lapse and had it running through the entire build. When I went to upload all that footage to make this video, it was an hour and 3 minutes long. So what I'm going to do is break this down into days. Today we're only going to be talking about day 1, and if you guys are interested in seeing the complete time-lapse, which I think would be a pretty cool video, just let me know in the comment section down below. Let's go ahead and get started. Day 1, this is actually the night before. This is when John brought his boat to us and we first got our eyes on this boat. Next morning, the first thing we started off with was building the subfloor frame. We used 1.5 inch angle aluminum, 1/16 inch diameter. We attached that by rivets to the pre-existing stock seats, bench seats in this boat. Then we used 1.5 inch square aluminum tubing. We attached those to the 1.5 inch aluminum angle using stainless steel screws. And this was gonna give us the support and the structure for our subfloor. Now you can see right now, we're basically dividing this up into 4 sections, and you'll see why in a minute. This is a great way to repurpose the seats that are already existing in your boat. Once that was done, we were able to trim off those bench seats to the height at which the subfloor was going to lay. We did run into a few high spots, and those can get easily taken care of with a sanding disc. Just knock those down to the same height as everything else. Next, we did a little bit of a cleanup to make sure all the filings and everything, all the junk from the aluminum and cutting is all out of the boat. And then we started test fitting the actual subfloor. Now for the subfloor, we're using 0.090 diameter aluminum sheeting. We're test fitting it in these spots and knocking down all those high areas with that sanding disc. We found the spot at which the 2 sheets were gonna be meeting up, and we needed to be able to put rivets there. So we welded in square tubing in order to give us a place to put those rivets to attach the subfloor to the frame. We used the welder because we had it available, but this can also be achieved with rivets and 1.5 inch angle aluminum. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Once we had all the aluminum sheeting for the subfloor down and fitted and perfect, we took it all back out, and then we began making our channels. As you can see, we have an outside support, an inside support, another inside support, and another outside support. And on those 2 inside supports is where we're going to run the 1 inch pink foam standing vertically. What we're doing here is we're creating a channel, so if there's any water up in the bow, it can move all the way to the transom and to the bilge pump and be directed out of the boat. We're using quad foam in between these foam sheeting areas to give it a seal. This is closed cell spray foam that you can find at your local hardware store. And we're doing this because when we pour the pour foam in, it's a liquid and we don't want it running into our channel. For the pour foam, we used a 2-pound density 2-part pour foam. You can find this on TBNation.net. I will leave a link in the description below. Obviously, when you do the pour foam, it's gonna expand over where you want your subfloor to be, so we had to knock a lot of that pour foam off. We started off with a knife. It didn't really work too well, so we ended up breaking out the hand sander, and we're able to knock all that down to a level surface, so when the aluminum sheeting goes on top, everything's still flat. This was extremely messy, however, so after a quick cleanup, we made sure to put in one of the plumbing hoses for the live well and began attaching the 0.090 subfloor to the subfloor frame. Another quick cleanup and the subfloor is completely installed. Now it's time to work on the deck framing. You can see on the side of the boats, we already have 1.5 inch 1/16 angled aluminum attached to the boat. You do have to make cuts in that aluminum every 2 inches in order to get to bend the right way to follow the flow of the boat. And then we began the framing. Now, we always start off with the header piece, and I imagine this header piece is basically the ending to your front deck. So this is where we basically plan the front deck to end. We teed off the aluminum angle on either side of which where the live well was going to be. Once again, for all this framing, we're using 1.5 inch 1/16 diameter angle aluminum, and for all of our vertical supports for the framing, we're using 1.5 inch 1/16 square tubing aluminum. And you can see we're putting these vertical supports about 1 foot to 1.5 feet away from each other, depending on where we feel like we need support. We're making sure to put the live well in and out of this thing all the time, just to make sure that everything's still running straight and that live well is still gonna fit in between these 2 frames. We were very lucky to have Eric from Few Man Boats come down and help us out with this boat. He helped us out tremendously getting this all framed out, getting the live well in and all that, and it was a pleasure having him around. Make sure to go follow him on Instagram at Few Man Boats. He does some pretty sweet builds as well. You can see here that we're basically making a wall from the cockpit to the compartments. So We're using .050 diameter aluminum sheeting to do that. So a good way to think of this is like your subfloor is 0.90, vertical walls or bulkheads are .050, and decking is .090. So 0.90, 0.50, 0.90. That 0.50 aluminum sheeting gets riveted to the rest of the framing, and we were also able to start attaching the boxes that go below Nate's drop-in hatches. So this is a really good accessory to have as well. You can also find all these on TBNation.net. I'll link them in below as well. For the front deck, we're doing a lot of framing up there as well. We're gonna run one big hatch, but that's the only thing we're putting there. No recessed foot control. The trolling motor that he bought with this was the Motor Guide XI, I think it's the XI3. It's all remote control, so there is no foot control, so there's no need for any of that. Basically, we're having one hatch, and underneath the front deck is going to be completely open for storage, everything. I don't think this was actually planned out at the beginning of this build, but we ended up putting a smaller compartment right in front of the live well inside the cockpit. It's a very shallow stow. It's going to allow him to basically put any tools or smaller items inside this compartment and not have them scattered all around the boat. You see Mike framing that out right now. We also end up putting a couple cup holders inside next to this lid. One of the final things that got done on day one was Nate went around with a rattle can, spray painted the sides. We weren't really feeling that it was like an ugly white cream color that was kind of around the sides, and we decided to change that. Already knowing that we were going to be putting that snow camo, it was just going to end up looking a little bit better. So Nate got that knocked out so it could dry and be good for when we came in the next day. So even though this wraps up the end of day one, this isn't where this project started. All of our projects start off as a rough sketch, and we do this so that we know that all of our hatch sizes and measurements are correct and are going to fit inside this boat. You basically write out a list of things you want. I want a live well, I want a rod locker, I want, you know, a cooler, a chill box, whatever. I need an electrical compartment. I need a recessed foot control, whatever it is, or you want seats. We start off using measurements that we know. Our live wells are 12 by 30, so we gotta account for that space somewhere. Rod lockers, if you want a rod locker, we suggest a minimum of 8 feet, 48 inches specifically for your hatch door. The other 4 feet is dedicated to tubes that are underneath the deck. And that's to ensure that your rods can come in and out of the rod locker easily. After we put those into the boat, we kind of see, okay, we have this much room here, we have this much room here. Let's go see what kind of hatches we can put inside there. We go over to Nate's dry hatches, we look at the different measurements we have, and we try to use those measurements to fill in areas inside the empty spot in our drawing. Keep in mind the measurements that are on the website. If it's a 12 by 16 inch hatch, then that's the actual measurement of the hole that the hatch is going to sit inside. That does not take into account for the 1.5 inch overlay that will sit on top of your frame on the hatches. So keep that in mind. All these parts are going to be listed in the link below. And if you feel like you still need some guidance, feel free to message us on TBNation.net. So if you're interested in seeing day 2, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that little bell thing. Thank you guys for watching, and keep your eyes peeled for day 2.